This is something I was discussing with a client yesterday, and that's the difference between approaching something as a challenge and approaching something as a threat. Now we're talking about the same thing, the same situation that is, trying to find a word other than challenging, a situation that could be read as a challenge or as a threat. And what do I mean by making that distinction? Well, I think that they're two very different modes and that they engage the mind and the heart differently. I think they, from what I've heard vaguely, they engage us chemically differently. But the fundamental point is that a threat is something that you try to avoid, and you kind of move toward it kicking and screaming. You don't want to deal with it, and you only deal with it because you absolutely must. And there's a kind of weakness and passivity. It's very much a mode of, if I didn't have to be here, I absolutely wouldn't. Now, of course, there are a lot of things that we'd prefer not to have, but this is a kind of mode of being forced into the situation, so it's a very passive mode. Whereas the other situation where it's a challenge, you can definitely say, I'd much prefer this not to be something I'm dealing with. That's different from I'm being forced into it. You're voluntarily opting into a mode of relating to the thing where you're seeing what strengths you can bring to it, you're seeing what possibilities you can find. So there's a kind of creative, strength-based mode of approach. And one of the big things about that is it can turn it into turn it into a set of things that are more on the positive spectrum. So it can turn it into a game, for example. If I'm anxious socially and I have to talk, or I have to turn up somewhere where I'm going to talk to lots of strangers, how am I going to deal with that? Well, that can just be an anxiety-provoking threat, or I could do a bit of exploration, a bit of reflection, a bit of work around how I can improve my confidence, and I can make a bit of a game of that. So I talked in another video, I think a few weeks ago, about sort of inhabiting your better possibilities, and one way of doing that being that you sort of step into the template. Oh, it's a kangaroo. Yeah. Step into the template of who you want to, somebody that you admire, a hero. And so that's kind of method acting, and that can be fun. So this is just one example, but you step into the mode of being where you sort of exercise the strengths that you need, you exercise the mode of being you need, maybe dress a certain way, carry yourself a certain way. You can turn that into fun. You can turn that into a game. So that's just one example among others, but when we turn this into a challenge, it becomes this positive thing. You can turn it into something where I'm trying to achieve goals. I'm marking these off as achievements. And so once again, that's a very different mode to be in compared to I'm just being forced and I just want to get out of here. So if you can flip the interpretation of situations that you prefer not to be in, from situations that I absolutely hate and I'm only being dragged into, to situations I'd much prefer not to be into, but I'm going to approach them with a kind of curiosity, with a kind of with a mode of being that is of somebody who's running toward a challenge and trying to overcome a challenge. That can make a great difference to your particular problems and to how you are in the world more generally, to your way of being more generally. That can, if you keep doing that, they'll start to change who you are and how you carry yourself.